Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
Hi, I'm George Luna.
And I'm Brittany Pacheco, and we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss The Boys, Episode 5, Season 3. I always get that flipped in my head. Episode 5 of Season 3. Title of the episode is The Last Time to Look on This World of Lies.
So, why are these titles so long?
They're so long, and I don't know if you'll ever read the descriptions, but the descriptions are just like joke things from the episode. Like it never really explains what the episode's about. So it's always kind of funny stuff. Like this time it was all about that Crimson Countess and her chimp country or whatever this thing she's trying to set up with the orangutan from Dunstan checks in, and like all these other like famous, I guess, primates from other movies from in the past. Anyway, it's silly. Before we just really break it down, let's get our overall thoughts on the episode. George, what'd you think about episode 5, season 3?
This is the first and only time I'll say this. I enjoyed this musical in this episode. I enjoyed the musical.
Yes! Come to the dark side.
No, I said the first and only.
You need to watch Hamilton. It might change.
Hamilton is so good.
I tried, dude.
So good.
I watched like the first 5 minutes with Frank. We're like, nope, we can't do this.
Yo, the opening numbers. Okay, we're gonna digress. Let's stick with the boys.
No, but overall, the musical part of it was a cool little change of pace of everything that was happening in the episode, because a lot did happen, but it was a really good episode. The story did advance a lot. Like we kind of see the progression of like what's happening with this V24 and how it's affecting them, and I think that's going to play a role in the future with like Huey and Butch, and just the long-term effects of this. I think is definitely going to be something that plays into the storyline later on.
Yeah, definitely. Brittany, what are your thoughts on the episode?
I mean, we talked about this last week with every episode like becoming your favorite until the next episode airs, right? And this for sure has definitely rang true for me. I feel like this episode was a little bit more emotional than past Boys episodes. I don't know. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this too. Also, shout out to Maggie, who's joining us in the live chat. Hey, girl. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Love to hear your thoughts on what you thought about this long-ass titled episode 5. Be sure to leave your comments. We will be sure to show them here on the live stream and address them and talk about it. But yeah, like I said, I really did enjoy this episode. Again, story development, the pacing of it with the addition of the musical was great, in my opinion. Absolutely loved it. But definitely just more emotional in many ways, but more around Starlight and Huey, of course. There's a lot going on in their relationship, and that dynamic is shifting ever so slightly, if you will. Love this episode. Can't wait to dive into it with y'all.
Yeah, and it's like we always talk about, there's so much to this show, and it just there's just so many storylines, and it's all good stuff. But I think, George, you had a good starting point. I think let's start off with Camiko's musical number, because, and I've mentioned this several times, like the one thing about The Boys that's amazing is that when they talk about like social justice stuff, or they talk about political stuff, it's always stuff that pertains to our world, our current things that are happening right now in our world. Right. So it was so like just crazy how the same kind of week we found out that Joker 2 is going to be a musical, and potentially Lady Gaga is going to play Harley Quinn, and Joaquin Phoenix is coming back, the follow-up to that $1 billion Joker movie. It's going to be a musical. This literally a week later, we find out that there's going to be a musical number in The Boys. So their timing with this stuff it's like eerie. It's like they know, like they have
awesome.
They have a crystal ball or something. But let's start out with the musical number. So Camiko, just a little backstory. In episode 4, the end of episode 4, the boys free Soldier Boy. He uses that power where he like emits this light from his chest. Kimiko takes the blast to save Frenchie, and she's in bad shape. So in this episode, they get her back over to America from Russia, get her to the hospital. And I'm really curious to what y'all think about this, because she's having this like touching moment with Frenchie in her hospital bed, and she starts to make a sound, and she, you
Mhm.
know, initially, and then she says, and then she says, I got rhythm, which is the song that she performs, which is obviously a dream sequence. But my question for y'all, do y'all think that the part where she was making a sound and Frenchie was like reacting, do y'all think that was real, or was that part of like her fantasy?
I think it was real.
I
I think
thought it
it's
was
real
real too.
because
I thought so too.
she's losing her powers.
Right.
She's starting to become like
Just
quote
human.
unquote normal to her.
Right.
I think maybe we don't know. Like the V might have been like the reason she couldn't talk, or something have to do with it. And I don't know. I think she did say those words. All the musical stuff was in her head, but then I think the first part of that definitely might have been real.
And see,
Brittany.
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree based on the sequencing of that whole part, because when they're watching the DVD with Judy Garland singing I Got Rhythm, and she starts with her and then she looks at Frenchie to say I got rhythm, they both take off their earbuds. And when you go back to the scene after the musical dream sequence and she's kissing Frenchie, they each have their earbuds back in.
Right.
So my whole thing is the dream sequence started with her saying I. We've heard Kimiko attempt to use her voice back, I think, all the way in season 1 when they had Haley Joel Osment's character Mesmer, who was kind of helping the boys and what have you. She's in the bathroom and she's looking at herself. And that's the first time we see her attempt to use her voice, but we haven't seen anything since then. So my theory is that that whole dream sequence started with her attempting to use her voice, because while Frenchie being kissed by Kimiko was a big like shock for him, and he's like, I'm gonna go get coffee. You want some coffee? He's just kind of in a daze. Why wouldn't he have addressed the whole "you spoke, I can't believe you spoke" kind of thing? So that's just my theory, and who knows? I could be wrong.
You're probably right, because like the headphone thing that you mentioned now, I didn't really notice that even on my rewatch. But I did notice that on the rewatch that, so when Frenchie asks her if she wants some coffee, because he's gonna get coffee, she doesn't. I mean, she just responds with shakes her head, right? So she doesn't say anything. Now that to me, maybe she, baby steps. You can't just say full sentences right away. But that's interesting, because the way they do it, it kind of leaves it open to interpretation, I think. It's immediately after it happens, then the musical number starts, and of course, that's part of this fantasy. But something else, and George, you referenced it, that I want to talk about early in the episode. Kimiko she's excited by the fact that she's losing her powers. Like she obviously wants to be a person, because once she awakens, I don't think she was in a coma, right? She was just badly injured and knocked out, right?
Dying?
Maybe, yeah. It's hard to totally know, but she seems excited by the fact that her body isn't healing like the Wolverine healing powers that she used to have, and the fact that Frenchie she asks for something heavy to pick up, and he gives her something heavy in the office, in the doctor's office or whatever, in the hospital room, and she can't pick it up, and she's excited that she doesn't have her super strength, she doesn't have her healing powers. And I thought that was so interesting when you think about the rest of the characters in the episode, the ones who are super powered, and the ones who who are super powered since like birth, I guess, and the people who are taking Temp V, like the whole talk about powers, like it seems like to steal from them Spider-Man, like these powers are a gift and a curse, and it's really how you look at it. You know what I'm saying? Like what George, what's your take on that?
No, it's definitely a gift and a curse. Like some people, like Kimiko, like it was like forced onto them, like they didn't ask for this shit. And I think that's the difference when you get to Huey, like wanting power, because he's basically been like a bitch his whole life.
Yeah.
So, but like I think there's like a big difference between like Kimiko and him, and like she just wants to be a normal person. She wants to be able to die. Like she's been through a lot in her life, losing her brother, like dealing just with so much shit. So I think she's just ready to be a normal person, but I don't think that's gonna work. I think eventually somehow she's gonna get her powers back and have to save Frenchie or something, because I think that's what's gonna end up happening. Because
Right.
Frenchie's gonna get in trouble with the little. This is the question I have for you guys, because I was confused by this. Why is little Nina still coming to Frenchie to make him do these things when he already did the mission for her?
Because he's always, like you said, he's always kind of been her bitch.
So
like it's
the bro, like why? Like kill her. Like
yeah,
they've killed them more powerful people than her.
right. I think the implication is the fact that Frenchie doesn't want to kill people. Like,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
little
that's true.
Nina, she comes to him early in the episode. She says, like, "Hey, I need," and she shows him a picture. "I need you to kill this guy and his daughter." And he's like,
Yeah.
"I can't do that." And she's like, "You always said that. You always said that, like, death was like acid to your heart, but then you always did it."
Yeah. But why
Right.
didn't he say like we did the jobs for you? Like
Well, I mean, he kind of did, because he said, like, "Look, like, because she's saying in the beginning of the scene that she says, well, there were 10 Russian soldiers, so Russian soldiers were killed, and so so many people were killed because of what y'all did in Russia, freeing Soldier Boy." And he says, "Well,
She's
that's
owed, in other words, like
right." She
you
thinks that
owe her
you owe me
something.
more, and he said, "Well, why don't you take that up with Butcher?" And she's like,
Mhm.
"No, you're the one who introduced me to Butcher, so I know you. I don't know him." That's kind of the way they're getting around it.
oh,
Is that
whack.
it's just that she knows that she can make Frenchie do things. She doesn't know Butcher, and spoiler alert,
No,
he's
if I
not
was,
going to do anything for her. I mean, more than likely now he would just kill her, like you're saying, like
yeah.
with the powers that Butcher now has, or with the Temp V, he
Like
would just laser eye
that's the
her.
thing. Like I would go to
Yeah,
Butch like, hey, this lady's gonna make troubles for us like later on, like
right.
let's get this over with.
Yeah, I think it's just the crux of the story is the fact that he doesn't. Frenchie and Kimiko want to get out of this life, and he
Yeah.
hates the killing, and he just gets kind of caught up in it.
Uh,
So Brittany, what are your thoughts about that?
So quickly addressing the whole Nina bit,
Yeah,
she knows how to play on Frenchie's emotions, and he's weak in certain aspects of doing certain things, and she knows how to push his buttons on that front, especially when it came to addressing the fact that he has killed children in the past, because she's plainly said it, that never stopped you before.
right.
And whatever Frenchie's past is his past. If he's decided to change his ways because of Kimiko and wants to have like a future with her and that kind of thing, that's obviously the reason why he wouldn't want to, for one, work for Nina, because he didn't like the crap that she had him do. And that's just kind of what it is. But addressing the whole having power is a blessing and a curse, it definitely can be like that depending on your perspective. George mentioned about Huey, guy being a little bitch all his life, even though he claims he's Dom Toretto and can take off super fast and he's all about family. Jeez, that
Well,
line
no,
killed me.
the joke was that, like, before I took the V, if I saw somebody that looked at me like crossways, I was scared, and I was, because I'm quick, I take off, like I'm all like Dom Toretto. I'm quick, and I'm all about family.
Yeah,
So he's saying now with the V that now he's tough and he can stand up for
he's tough.
himself. And
Right. Anyway, but when you consider the interaction between Maeve and Butcher,
yeah,
and Butcher's feelings about having taken temporary V, it was kind of questioned, did you liked having that power? And he looked at Maeve and said, I hated every fucking second of it. The thing is that in his perspective, V just makes him more of himself. Like he
right,
knows he's an asshole. He knows the qualities that he has, be it good or bad. It's just, he even said it to Huey that taking the V was punishment. It wasn't
right,
like something he was proud of doing. It was kind of just a necessary means to an end. But with Huey, for example, he looks at it as a way that he can be helpful and not be afraid and be confident in this and that. But that's gonna come with some sort of consequences. Like there's no question about that. There's no way they would set things up like this without there being some sort of consequences
absolutely.
for Huey. So would it be cool to have these kind of powers to be able to take down your enemy? Sure, but at what cost?
Exactly. And you brought up the Maven and Butcher scene, which I did not see that really coming. I mean, now definitely she's been the one supplying the Temp V this season, so obviously they have a connection in that way. But I did not see this scene coming up, and I want to mention, obviously they get together. He offers her a drink. She says she hasn't had a drink in 4 months. He said it's been a year for him. Then they get hammered and they end up having sex, which I did not see coming at all. Like crazy. I mean, well, first off, did y'all see that coming or not? Yeah. I mean, once they're drinking on the couch, I'm like, okay, I knew that. But like when she first came in there, I'm like, I did not expect this scene to go to that place. But as I said, I mentioned another Spider-Man thing earlier. I mentioned about how the gift and a curse. Well, Butcher, as he's talking to her about his hatred for soups, even though he's taking this drug and it's helping him level the playing field with them. He has another very like Spider-Man type quote, but with definitely a Butcher slant. He says, with great power comes the absolute certainty that you'll turn into a right cunt. And like, that's, it's with great power comes great responsibility is what the playoff. But what he said rings pretty true. Like when people become powerful, they become the worst version of themselves. And even he said it would like, all it does is it just amplifies what's already inside of you.
Is that foreshadowing?
I mean,
because he's being a dick. Like, he's becoming.
He's really
becoming. He's been a dick.
No, but
talking about
even worse than before.
He's the mirror reflection of Homelander now. You notice that? Like, think about Homelander.
Yeah.
And then think about with like what would happen with Maeve. We were talking about Homelander had sex with Butcher's wife, right? So now Butcher has sex with Homelander's like ex-girlfriend or whatever. Like the way Butcher treats the boys, the way Homelander treats the Seven, very similar.
Yes.
Yeah. The parallels are very strong amongst the two men.
So strong.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting the way they're going with this character Butcher in this season.
And then also the parallels between Homelander and Maeve, and then Soldier Boy and Crimson Countess. Like
exactly.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
When we talk more about Soldier
next.
Boy.
Yeah.
But put a pin in that one.
Yeah, that's a good point. But the one thing I wanted to bring up also and ask you all this question is, so we're taking this parallel between Butcher and Homelander. So I want to ask you all about Butcher's powers. Now we've seen that Butcher is bulletproof like Homelander. We've seen that Butcher has the laser eyes like Homelander. Can Butcher fly like Homelander? George, what do you think?
I don't think he can fly yet. Yeah. Well, he hasn't had a reason to, right?
But I wonder if he can, because he has the other powers, it seems like.
I would try to find out, like, if I could, like, if I only had it for 24 hours, I want to know exactly what I can do.
Yeah. Like Shazam style with like that little kid, like recording it, taking notes or whatever. Yeah.
Oh goodness, I'd be too. I have a fear of heights, so I would be afraid to even attempt it. So,
but what do you
don't you feel like you like? I feel like what I would definitely do is I would like go to the basketball court and be like, okay, let's see if I can like jump from the free throw line, because I've never been able to do that. And then if I did that, I'm like, well, let's see what else I can do. Like, because I would think that if you could fly, you would have some kind of feeling, even when you're on the ground, where you could feel like maybe if I just take off a little bit, who knows what's going to, like.
I am not at all surprised that if you ever got your hands on temporary V, none of this surprised me about you attempting to find out what kind of powers you have, because that is very you.
That is very, there's no doubt. I would try to find out all the powers.
You definitely would.
I definitely would. And being better at basketball.
I'd be there recording Justin taking notes.
Improving my basketball game wouldn't be my number one priority, but it's just something I thought of. Like,
George, just do it from a distance, okay?
Yeah.
Like use
my God.
the long lens.
I know.
That's funny. But no, I was thinking about that because like he has all the other powers. It seems like he's got to have that power. I think
that might be a very big reveal, and let's say
that's the finale,
the penultimate or the finale. Like that will be the big thing about Butcher, or whenever they decide to do the showdown between Butcher and Homelander, or Butcher, Homelander, and Soldier Boy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's gonna probably be the big like whoa, like shit just got real at this point.
And I think we're going to see Butcher fly in the season finale. That's my prediction. I don't even want to say anything about next season, because this show, like I've said so many times, it's all gas, no brakes. Like you can't predict. Like it's hard for me to predict right now who's even going to be in season 4. You know what I mean? Like characters, like none of them could make it. You know, obviously many of them will, but um, let's stick with Butcher before we go to Soldier Boy. Let's stick with Butcher and let's talk about like all the great scenes he has with MM. Like those are like there's some really great back and forth scenes talking about because you know MM is telling him like, look, like we shouldn't be using these powers, right? That's not what this is about. And Brittany, why don't you talk about that while I've got a little bit of a noise issue over here.
Let me just start off with this. Really, all that MM is telling Butcher at this point is "fuck you." That's literally all he's telling him. Like every time Butcher addresses MM, it's like "fuck you," and I love how Alonzo just says it with such like distaste in his mouth, like he really hates Butcher at this point. But the scene that you're talking about with MM watching footage from the Russian experimenting on Soldier Boy, which by the way looked pretty awful, terrible. Having a gun just bullets down your throat, and you're invincible, right? You're virtually indestructible and what have you. And pardon me, with the conversation between Butcher and MM, obviously MM feels some type of way about Soups, specifically Soldier Boy, because of what happened between his family and Soldier Boy. And the fact that Butcher just wasn't honest with the boys to say, hey, I've got Temp V, I've taken it, this is what I'm doing. And it kind of defeats the purpose of what the boys do and their mission of having power. The point is, like, no one should have this kind of power. There shouldn't be this one almighty and these pawns, if you will, that have to be submissive to the almighty. So it's a big problem between the two, and you'll hear it throughout this episode about about drawing a line. The problem about not drawing a line is that you don't know where you stand. And that's what MM will say to Butcher when I say Butcher and Huey will take Compound V the second time or third time for Butcher in order to face Soldier Boy in the near future. And MM's just like, I'm not about it. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. This is just my stance on it. And then Butcher, being the dickhead that he is, will roofie MM to basically get him out of his way.
Right.
Because Butcher will not draw that line. He says he just can't.
Yeah. And George, whenever I saw the part where MM is roofied, did you think he was roofied? Or I thought he gave him V like in the water or whatever.
I thought for a second, I was like, man, did he give him V? I was like, that's pretty sick. I was like, I can't wait to see what happens.
Because then it's like, if he gave him V and then all like MM like hulks out, like he could just kill Butcher. You know what I'm saying? So I guess it makes sense that he didn't give him the powers, but that's what I thought, because MM was so betrayed in his look. And it's like, that's probably the worst thing you do is give him powers, because he's the one who's the most adamant about not having powers.
Yeah.
Given what happened to his family.
But I kind of like that flip, because we talked about this last week about the comics. MM is actually a Soup in the comics.
But he has power. Yeah, he has power.
Or he has powers, rather. And as of now in this series, we haven't seen that happen.
Right.
And I like the fact that what you said again last week about they're staying true to his convictions, in the sense of, we should not have this power, so I'm not going to partake.
Right.
And he is clearly disappointed with Huey, who listens to everything that MM says, and MM has a lot of respect for Huey and who he is, but that apparently is not enough for Huey. Also, let me just say this too. Have you guys noticed the 2 times that we've seen the interactions between Butcher, well, maybe not interactions, but Butcher seeing his little brother Lenny again? And we saw that a little bit more clearly in the beginning of this episode when Huey's puking his guts out, or Kermit the Frog having a wank in Huey's mouth, which was hilarious to me. But you saw that quick glimpse from Huey to what we presume is Lenny. So maybe we'll see a little bit more the backstory of what happened with Lenny. Is Butcher responsible for Lenny's death, or is it just something else entirely? So I'm wondering if Butcher's demons are going to really come out more so now that he's taken V, just like we see the demons of, let's say, Homelander. Just, well, I don't know if he really even has demons. He's just psychotic, but I'm just curious if all that's going to play out this season, or just cliffhangering it into next season.
Yeah, I mean, they've shown us this. Like you said, it's been twice now. They've shown kind of his little brother, by looking at Huey, and then of course, Huey is the one who's like, "Yeah, you still got me. I'm still on your team. I'll take the V." He's happy to take the V, and that kind of leads us nicely into like this whole thing between Huey and Starlight. Starlight obviously has had the powers, and Huey now he feels like by taking the compound or taking the temp V, he can now save her. That's what he says. I'm taking this to save you from Homelander. Obviously, she doesn't want him to take it because you don't know what's going to happen. This might kill you. And I love their like whenever they're first talking about like in the kitchen area or whatever, and he's telling, he's like, I'm never gonna do it again. He's like, it's gross. He's like, I absolutely hated it. And then he paused. He's like, I fucking loved it. He's like, it was awesome. And like that whole thing was a pretty funny thing. And then he said like, he tells her about how he can teleport. He's like, yeah, I just knew how to do that. I just clenched my butt together and jumped. I don't know.
That's
so funny.
That whole sequence between the two of them, from the Dom Toretto comment to the butt
right.
to teleport, I was laughing. I mean, Jack Quaid has got some comedic timing in what he's doing with this show. It's great. I love it.
I think he's the funniest person on the show because his reactions are always like the best. Like no matter what anybody says, his reactions take it to another level. Like he's so good at that. And then, but then like it's you see him kind of losing his humanity a little bit, or maybe not. You know what? I don't know if he's losing his humanity, but I think it's kind of like the thing with Butcher and MM where there's a part where Butcher, he acknowledges like what MM is saying is correct. He's like, when he's telling Maeve, like, all of you should be dead. No one should have this power. He's telling her that, but then he's saying like, but I need the power. I live in the real world and I have to level the playing field. In the past, it would take us months to, find a soup and be able to take care of one. He's like, I killed, what's his name? A gunpowder in seconds. It's like,
yeah.
So like MM is right, but Butcher is saying like, but unfortunately, like, your ideal is correct, but we don't live in an ideal world. We live in the real world where Homelander has the power. So we've got to level the playing field. And I feel like Huey is now to that level to where he knows like, hey, like every time I take this stuff, it could kill me. Who knows what it's going to do to me, but it's worth it because if I do nothing, then Homelander's going to kill Starlight and he's going to kill everybody else. So he feels like it's like, it's a roll of the dice, but it's something he should do. And obviously Starlight feels, otherwise. Yeah. So what did y'all think about, I'll start with George. What did you think about their interactions, Huey and Starlight, throughout the episodes, from the kitchen scene to the very end where it seems like they're kind of going their separate ways?
Yeah. I think Huey's starting to lose like control. Like he's got that taste and urge for that power.
Yep.
And he doesn't really care. Like I know he says does it to protect Starlight, which I think there is like a tiny portion of him that, yeah, definitely that's a part of it. Oh, yeah. But there's something that's unlocked that he just wants to like keep going, see where this goes and see what he can do. And I don't know, he likes that power. And I don't know what's going to happen with him and Starlight. I don't know. I don't know where it goes. Like he's definitely going to try and protect her or be there for her, and they're going to have to eventually fight together somehow. I think Starlight's going to have to get over the thing that they're going to use Soldier Boy as a weapon. They're all going to have to work together, like whether they like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. That seems like it's a it's a team up, as Butcher says, but it's not like a team up. It's a team up of convenience more so than or a team of necessity more so than like, hey, like we're like the Avengers or something. We're like a real team.
Yeah, we're the Revengers.
Yeah.
Maggie brings up a good point about Huey is going on a power trip. He's being a Compound V addict, and we did kind of mention that at the end of last week's episode about my concern was with Butcher being addicted to the power, and then it shifted to that of Huey, obviously. And I see definitely how just having that little taste of power for Huey is not enough. He's going to want more, and it's going to come at a cost. Obviously, if that cost is losing Starlight as his girlfriend, because she said to him, like pleading to him, like, I don't need you to save me, I just need you. Because obviously she had no idea what she was getting into when she became a part of the Seven. She has seen all the things, unfortunately has done some of the things in order to stay part of the Seven, having to play that game just to survive. And it probably is killing her, bit by bit. And then to
Right.
have the one good thing that was normal, that wasn't part of this chaos, is now going into that chaos, taking this thing from Vought, the temp V. And I mean, she was rightfully pissed off about it. Like, why would you do something like that? You don't know what it's going to do to you. And yeah, she, for all intents and purposes, basically has a temp V junkie for a boyfriend. And that's going to become more important to him than her. Maybe, I'm not sure. But I mean, if they go their separate ways for the time being because they just can't see eye to eye on it, they're going to have to just kind of wrap their heads around and just be like, listen, there's something greater, and that's to take out Homelander. So this is what we need to do, whatever it takes.
Right.
This is what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that to Huey, I think that it's I think he is addicted to it, but I think there's also a factor of like the ends justify the means. So if we have to do this, like you said, whatever it takes, it's what we're going to do. And, whatever it takes also includes teaming up with Soldier Boy, which let's talk about Soldier Boy now. And I wanted to mention, so I followed Maggie last week on Twitter, and it seems like she's a big fan of Jensen Ackles, who plays Soldier Boy. And
just a little bit.
Right. And so I wanted to point out something that I saw on social media. Maybe I even saw it on Maggie's, one of her posts or something. But the fact that in this episode, they mention when they're doing the tests on Soldier Boy, one of the test dates, or the test date they mentioned, is January 24th, which is the birthday of the character he used to play in what's it called? Supernatural. Dean Winchester's birthday. And like that show has a fanatical fan base because it went on for 15 seasons. There's a prequel that's going to be on the CW coming next fall. I believe Jensen Ackles is a part of that also as a showrunner or something. And as we talked about, Eric Kripke, he created Supernatural. He was the showrunner for 5 years on that show. And so I think that's cool that he's like throwing a kind of a bone or like an Easter egg to people who know this character and know this actor. So I think that's just kind of a cool thing to bring up. But as far as Soldier Boy himself, so we see him, he's leaving Russia. He makes his way over to New York.
How does he get there?
That's a good question.
Well, can
he fly?
Back in Russia, we saw that there were two guys like speaking Russian. It looked like they were working maybe at a hangar at an airport, and he climbs down the ladder with the full-on beard. So he probably was just
I must have missed
away.
That. I don't know.
It's kind of a quick scene.
Yeah, it was a quick scene. Yeah,
it's a quick scene.
Right. It's the first time you actually see him besides the experiments. It's just a quick transition between other scenes.
Okay.
But he gets there. He gets to New York, and he's
culture shock.
Yeah, it's cold. You're right. He's
very.
It's sort of like what we always say about how Captain America, the first Avenger, where he wakes up and instead of being in 1944, he's in 2010 New York City, and he sees Times Square and everything. He's kind of freaking out. But the difference is this guy
doesn't kill anybody.
Right. He's seeing people. He's seeing gay couples, and he's seeing advertisements
But Cap wasn't triggered by a Russian song playing on the radio.
Right, which apparently
big difference.
Whenever he was being tortured, they had Russian synth pop playing, and so that he hears that song, and he just starts, this I guess he has nuclear power, right? Is that what we're kind of?
Yeah, for sure.
Nuclear.
He just nukes this guy in this building. I don't know if it's an apartment building or whatever it was. Just this giant hole, in the middle of this building, is just. He evaporates this building basically. But what do y'all think about him as a fish out of water? He's got the beard, he's got the longer hair. I thought that was very, very cool, compared to what I was saying with the first Avenger, because I like First Avenger. I think that's a very I just think it's so cool how they're taking these things that we already love and they're twisting them, but they're kind of making them better, in my opinion. So
Yeah, this was a way darker.
Yeah.
Imagine if Captain America woke up like that and just fucking murdered a shitload of people.
murdering people.
Woo! I'm here for
but,
it. No, I'm
but
just
he could though. That's the thing about The Boys is like, you know, what if Superman were evil? It's like this Superman is totally evil. I mean,
Yeah.
not totally, but like he does
No,
just
he's
kill
evil.
people. Yeah, he's evil. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a blend between Cap and Bucky. Obviously, Bucky having
Right.
been
Right.
influenced by Hydra, and you know, with the long hair. I'm glad he shaved down the beard because it was not a good look. I like facial hair on guys, but like the full on like Russian beard, not a good look. Anyway, yeah, him being the fish out of water in New York, which is interesting to. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit when MM and the boys meet up with the Legend, and we get a little bit more background story about the Legend himself, and then about Soldier Boy, who apparently does not age, much like Stormfront. And it started
like
becoming
Captain America,
much like Captain America. Yeah. And it's like in whatever year a particular movie was filmed, Soldier Boy was 63 years old and his leading lady was 19. It started becoming an issue then.
Yeah.
But and then then he brings up Entrapment, talking about fucking Michael Douglas, fucking Catherine Zeta-Jones. He's like 1,000, you know?
Right. Well, they end up getting married though. Yeah.
I know they end up getting married. They have kids. Sidebar. Okay.
Right.
But the fact that Soldier Boy really has just been out of the loop of things. I mean, with being in the container in Russia for, 30, 35 plus
almost
years.
40 years. Yeah.
Almost 40 years. It's like, you missed out on a lot, bud. And especially with New York City being the quite progressive liberal city that it is. So I like the nods for sure towards Cap America, Winter Soldier, and if you even want to throw in Superman just for the hell of it, sure, why not?
Yeah, I just think that the character is such a cool character. And you touched on the Legend. Let's talk about the Legend real quick. The Legend is played by Paul Reiser, which I did not expect to see Paul Reiser from apparently he's in Stranger Things, but I knew Paul Reiser from Mad About You. He would like Mad About You is this huge comedy in the 90s. It was on NBC. It was like around Seinfeld and Friends. It was like in that era. And to see him play this character, I mean, he nails this. It's like a Hollywood type like agent guy. Right, but he was basically Stillwell before Stillwell. He was the VP of Hero Management at Vought. And it's just funny, like the way Brittany, you mentioned about the the inappropriateness of the age gap and the characters, and he's talking about like, he's
he's just going left and right. Yeah. I mean, he's just not
Marlon
Brando.
Which that's kind of a reference to Marlon Brando. He plays Jor-El in the first two Superman movies, right? And they did like Jor-El, like Marlon Brando did like apparently take kind of he still made a lot more money than like Christopher Reeve, who was Superman, but he did take like a small cut to play that role. So I feel like that was like a nod because they said it was like, he's like, well, this happened. He's like, but he took a cut in his pay to be in that Steel Knight role. He's like, so who fucked who or whatever. Like, which was such a funny.
My favorite line was when he offers Huey cocaine. He was like, "No, I'm full."
He's like, "I'm all full of cocaine."
Yeah.
But it's interesting that MM knew the Legend. He knew that once Soldier Boy arrived in the States or in New York, that he would go visit the Legend, and the Legend had kept his suit, the suit is awesome. It's like kind of a greenish color. The shield looks really cool. It's a great like Captain America ripoff suit. I mean, perfectly done. But like he did like lines of coke with the Legend, like, and the mirror is still there. And MM's like, so if I do a DNA sample of that, like, who is it going to show? And I don't know. It's just, the show is so great. Like, I wish we could have seen those scenes of him interacting, because like, here's this guy he hasn't seen in 40 years and he comes back looking the same. To have, I don't know, it would have been a funny interaction to see those two characters.
Yeah, for the legend to basically say that he thought he was seeing a ghost of
Right.
Soldier, and it wasn't. Of course, it really was Soldier Boy who came to his door, and the reason for it was because he wanted the address of Crimson Countess,
Right.
Soldier Boy's former flame. And from what we got out of it, the lead that it wasn't going to be a happy reunion, and it really did not end up being a happy reunion. But before we get there, I also want to just address that it's interesting how works with the left from time to time, because of the very fact that, like what you said, Justin, being VP of Hero Management, he okayed the cover up of a lot of incidences that the Supes did, including whatever it is that Soldier Boy did to MM's family.
Right.
So I can't imagine how difficult that would be for MM to like go seek help from the man who covered up whatever it happened with MM's family.
Mhm.
Insane to me, because we get a little glimpse of the rift between MM and Janine's stepdad, for all intents and purposes, who I don't know
Right.
who she is to him. I think his name is Todd. But the fact that Todd is like, oh, she can listen to Homelander rant and rave, and it's good for her. She loves Homelander, and MM mouths off, and Todd's like, you want to, watch the language in front of the kid, and he's like, it's not the kid, she's my daughter. Like, it's really interesting just how we see now with the dynamic change of Homelander's audience, the people who look up to him, obviously, and how that can easily influence a younger generation. And it's political, whatever, social, all that bit. It's just really interesting to see how everything in the show is so relatable to what's happening today.
Yep.
But again, I digress. But going back to the legend giving the information to Soldier Boy about Crimson Countess, and y'all, that scene with Crimson, and that was Seth Rogen.
one
Seth Rogen.
Oh my
that was
god.
disgusting.
And y'all remember Seth Rogen? He played himself like in season 1.
Yeah.
Remember, he did like a movie
like
with
on a
Blight
TV
Noir.
thing.
Yeah, something. Yeah. So yeah, in this in this episode, Seth Rogen is having a private kind of video cam chat with Crimson Countess, and his screen name is Circumzalot 779. So that's awesome. And then also the fact that she's like warming up these like very large anal beads. Like,
they're
this
not
show-
anal beads, they're anal balls. Okay. Like,
yeah, right.
they're
Exactly. There you go.
ginormous.
Yeah. That was also like, this show just, there's no boundaries this show won't cross, but I do like the part where like, she's kind of getting in the mood and she's playing her own music, which is this like very like Celine Dion-ish like rip off music about her love for animals. It's so, I don't know, it's so funny. But
yeah, it's really disturbing,
Right.
that whole scene. George is right in saying it was quite disgusting, and seeing Seth Rogen's character pleasure himself, and
yep.
it's cut off on her part because Butcher swoops in tackling her down,
Yeah.
loses
Thank God.
connection.
Thank God.
And Seth Rogen is unfortunately has to finish without Crimson Countess being present. But this is where I mentioned earlier about the parallel between Homelander and Maeve, and Crimson Countess and Soldier Boy. So quickly going back to that of Homelander and Maeve, there's a scene where Homelander is on Cameron
Coleman.
Cameron Coleman, couldn't think of his name. Cameron Coleman show, talking about this new supervillain that's present, took down this apartment, whatever. Is America safe? And Homelander says, yes,
Right.
of course, America's safe. Go out to dinner, go watch the movies, and do all the things. Go out, in other words, like just go out.
Right.
And Maeve is watching this. Homelander comes in, asks, do you really think that maybe this is a setup? And she says that she thinks that Homelander is a malignant narcissist. I don't think any of us could disagree. And what ended up transpiring was the fact that Homelander said, out of all the people, you, Maeve, knew what it was like to be lonely at the top, but we had each other. You know, did you ever actually love me? And she tells him, you know, I hated you. I hated you from the start, but more than anything, I pity you. And we'll see that echoing back with Crimson Countess and Soldier Boy. But I'm also getting ahead of myself once more, because the fact that Homelander in this conversation with Maeve, he basically says, "Oh, that it's funny that you pity me. Hey, you want to see something else that's funny?" Maeve turns around and swoop, Black Noir comes in just out of nowhere, and
So
we have no idea what happens with Maeve.
yeah, so she's
Sort
not
of.
dead, right? Do y'all think she's dead? No.
Don't know.
I think we've got to see her death for that to happen. She's too big of a character to kill off screen.
Off screen, yes, but I think George, I think everyone pretty much agreed that Maeve is probably not going to make it past this season. I'd be very surprised if she did.
Yeah, I don't think she's dead right now. Like, I think they like captured her and they're gonna keep her hostage somewhere. But eventually, I think definitely she might die later this season.
And the fact that Starlight goes and pleads with the new CEO of Vought International, aka Ashley, the fact that Starlight goes to Ashley and is asking about Maeve. Where is she? Is she even alive? Like, Homelander is out of his mind. He's out of control. We need to stop him. And it looked like Ashley was about to just spill her guts.
Right.
But then she, you know, gets her composure and says, I am the CEO of Vought. You know, schedule a fucking appointment the next time you want to see me. Yep. So I think definitely it goes without saying, Ashley is scared. Ashley is scared of Homelander, what he would do if she teamed up with Starlight. I mean, or am I off base here?
No, he definitely. I mean, she's, you know, she knows what happened to Maeve. She obviously knows what happened to Supersonic, even though they say Supersonic died of a drug overdose. You know, clearly that's not the case. Yeah, she's afraid. And Homelander, you know, much like what Edgar said, Homelander's in over his head. You know, like he might be the most powerful man in the world, but he doesn't know how to run this company. You know, he doesn't know any of this stuff, and it's just way over his skis. And he, you know,
and that was very apparent with that board meeting he had with
at the very beginning.
Those people with the I can't even pronounce it, EBITDA margins.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Basically, all the board members are sucking up to Homelander, feeding into his ego, and the one person that challenges him on the thing, he starts losing his mind. And then the ear ringing, and it's like he's gonna snap and probably laser beam all these fucking people right in front of him. But he's way in over his head. But what little control he does have, he's going to definitely exhibit that. He has Black Noir in his corner. The question last week was, is Black Noir still in league with Stan Edgar or not? I think it's pretty clear he's not. He's definitely with Homelander.
I don't know.
Doing his bidding.
I'm not convinced.
Ooh, tell me more.
I'm just not convinced. I still think he's there to keep him in check somehow. I think we'll see it later on, but I'm not convinced.
I mean, Noir might still kind of work for Edgar. You know what I mean? He might still be Edgar's kind of inside guy or whatever. I could see that happening, because I mean, we haven't seen the last of Giancarlo Esposito in this show. Like,
I hope not. He is phenomenal, just phenomenal, and whatever role he's in, even in Mandalorian. But okay, I'm not going to digress from there.
I bet we see him in the finale. I bet, you know, he has to kind of clean up the mess and they bring him back or something. We're going to see him again, I think. One thing I wanted to talk about, which I think was a key part of this episode, was A-Train storyline. A-Train, you know, we see him the first time we see him. Yeah, the first time we see him, Starlight confronts him about Supersonic's death, and she's like, "Hey, you know what you did was, you know, you basically you got him killed. You got Supersonic killed," and he blows her off, and then he goes to this meeting with Ashley where Ashley says, you know, for your loyalty to Homelander, we've granted you a meeting with Blue Hawk, and he's here right now. And so the Blue Hawk guy comes in, which the actor that plays this guy, he does a really good job, because this is also like a, you know, super racist character, but he plays it. It's humorous, but then it's also like scary the way he does it. It's very similar like what Antony Starr does with Homelander.
Well, it's like he's trying to downplay the whole thing, but yeah, it does make it quite scary.
But basically, A-Train tells Blue Hawk in this little meeting, he's like, "Hey, like, you know, what you're doing, the way you're patrolling these black neighborhoods, you're coming off as racist." And then Blue Hawk's like, he's like, "Actually, it's racist to call someone racist." And then he's like, "Is this a cancel kind of thing? Like, am I being canceled?" like they're just trying to hit all the things that we hear about in daily life. The boys are just like checking off the box for that. But the next part of this storyline, which, basically they agree, okay, like A-Train's like, well, you need to apologize. So Blue Hawk's okay, name the time and place. So then later on we see A-Train has Blue Hawk come to the community center that A-Train's brother, I guess he kind of runs that community center, and he's going to give this apology in this black neighborhood. And like, the apology is just like the lamest thing and whatever. And he just says like,
could he have read that apology any faster?
Yeah, just monotone. And then he's like, I do not see color. I only see crime. And then he offers like to give $10,000 to the community center. And then the people are up in arms about him. And then it all hell breaks loose. They're screaming Black Lives Matter. Then he's like, all lives matter. Then he's like, soup lives matter. And then he loses it. He's like punching and throwing people, and then, eventually A-Train stops him, but the damage is already done because A-Train's brother, Nate, is badly injured. Later on, we learned that, he's never going to walk again. And
what took A-Train so long to stop that?
I know. That's what I thought too. I thought the same thing.
Because he's not fast, y'all. Okay. If he starts running fast, his heart's going to explode. Give him a break.
Well, that was a moment to give it a shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, roll the dice there, because it's just the thing is that, and I mentioned this to you, Brittany, like the apology, I expected like a lame apology. I did not expect that this Blue Hawk would do what he did in front of a camera crew at a press conference, like a makeshift. Like,
I felt like something bad would happen for sure. Just how fake it was coming along and blah, blah, blah.
See, I thought it was going to come off really fake, but then the next day they were going to find out that he killed somebody else in the neighborhood for like a parking ticket or something. That's why I thought this was going to happen. And
then how they hide it, like his interview afterwards, he's like, he was stopping battling Antifa.
Yeah. Really?
Right. And the headline on TV says Blue Hawk stands up to Antifa. It's just like, oh my God. Like,
and just how he spins it, saying someone tried to pull a gun out, and he's like, it's just a shame that I try to donate money and this is how people react.
Yeah. So what do you guys think is going to happen with A-Train's storyline now that his brother will never walk again, and this happens, and how Vought's covering up this guy who's not even in the 7,
right,
instead of taking like his back? Do you think that's going to flip the switch in him, and just like he's going to be like, all right, fuck Homelander, fuck everybody, fuck Vought? Like,
I would hope so, because the fact that the Deep, and hopefully we'll talk about the Deep in a little bit too.
Next. Yeah.
The fact that the Deep had pointed out that Blue Hawk is part of Homelander's, not so much, I don't know, demographic is the
his
right
base, like
his base.
They have the same, they reach the same demographics. You're right. Yeah.
So to punish Blue Hawk for what he's doing is like punishing Homelander by extension, right? So that was not going to fly. And the very fact that when Starlight was addressing A-Train in the hallway about ratting out Supersonic, getting him killed virtually, she said, why are you so desperate to be around people who don't like you?
Right.
Like, why? And I think at this point, he's hopefully going to do something about it. I hope this isn't going to be like a Game of Thrones kind of situation where with Jamie seeing Cersei for who she really was, and he's like, I need to do something about this. No, the bitch goes back to his fucking crazy sister, right? I hope it's not going to continue like that for A-Train. I hope he will flip the switch and team up with Starlight and be discreet about it. You know what I mean? And because that's what needs to happen. So Maggie here says that A-Train may steal Compound V and pump it into his brother, and his brother may go rogue and kill Blue Hawk. That would be a twist.
That'd be cool.
That would be. But George, to answer your question, to me, it's like if this doesn't spur A Train on to like change his ways, like nothing will. Like like it couldn't hit more closer to home for him than having his brother now be paralyzed basically because of what he set up. He was trying to set up this like very PR-ish, very meaningless like press conference or whatever. And he's like, this I'm using my platform to help. And it's like that's not what his brother was telling him to do. His brother was like telling him, like, either do something with your fame or get out of there and just come back and live at home. Like this what you're doing now is not the way to go. So to me, I just don't see him being welcomed into the boys group, especially with Starlight, with given what's happened. So maybe he goes rogue on his own, and like tries to do something and he meets an untimely end at the end of this season or something. Cause I could see eventually like this has got to be his breaking point, I would think.
I would agree with that just because it took something very personal,
right?
Someone very close to him, his own flesh and blood, to be paralyzed by the hands of another soup who won't take responsibility for his actions and won't do the right thing. And A Train just needs to not buy into that shit anymore. It's not about the money. It's not about the housing. It's not about any of that anymore. Like the fact that there's no line drawn even for the soups, that's not okay. And I think I'm hoping that A Train will start to see that and want to be at the forefront of actually doing something to change that. Might get him killed, but if he stands up for what's right, hey.
I think he's a character that kind of has to die because of all the stuff he's allowed. Like I think there almost has to be like a sacrifice to if he wants to kind of redeem himself, maybe. But I don't know.
Listen,
with this show, it's hard to say that with this show.
The one that they can sacrifice is Deep because he's fucking stupid. He's a fucking coward. He's oh my god.
He's comic relief though, and like
that's fine.
We find out now that he's put in charge of crime analytics. Homelander basically appoints him in charge of this, and I mean it's so funny. But he gives this speech that of course his wife like wrote for him. You could tell because she's like mouthing the words as he's saying them, and he's telling the woman who was previously in charge that like, hey, like you had a good run, and like like even though he had no experience. But
okay, I'm going to sidebar real fast.
Right.
Does that not sound familiar in a certain work environment?
Well, yeah, but I don't know if whenever y'all watch the show on Amazon, if you ever like click on their little like those notes or whatever that come with the show, for that character, the one that he said had no experience, like she had like worked for the FBI and the CIA and all this kind of stuff, and like she had years of experience, and then he's like telling her like, yeah, you don't have
no practical experience
or whatever.
It's fine.
And then he like brings cupcakes for them to have,
sprinkles,
and then he mentions that
they're gluten-free.
Yeah, by the way, we have performance reviews that y'all need to sign, and they're just formality. And then later on in the episode, we find out that he fired almost the entire department. And the one of the few people left is the Almond Joy girl from from season 2, she's great. I'm glad she's back. She's a funny character, even though she's put in these like weird situations.
She's been on all 3 seasons.
All 3, okay.
Yeah, she's great too. But the fact that these people were fired for their tweets that were not in favor of Homelander.
Yeah, critical of Homelander. Like that's pretty funny. That also goes with his very, sensitive, like weak leadership. Like he's, it's everything that Edgar said in that speech is like, you have no idea what we have to do to cover up for you and the stuff that now he's, we're seeing like how despite how strong he is, he just doesn't have the chops to lead this company.
None whatsoever. Whatsoever.
I was happy to see the Almond Joy crime analyst return. I think that's kind of a funny a funny tick for that character.
Yeah. She shares that with Starlight as they're trying to do whatever it is that they're doing. And going back to the the encounter of Soldier Boy with Crimson Countess and that parallel between Soldier Boy and Homelander. The fact that Crimson Countess knew that Soldier Boy was taken to Russia, and she asked the boys, how did he escape Russia?
Right.
And she knew that Soldier Boy would come for her, which obviously he was going to. But first, Butcher intersects Soldier Boy's plan and basically is asking for a team up, and meanwhile, Huey and Starlight are having their own domestic about taking Compound V and blah, blah, blah. But when Soldier Boy goes inside to talk to Crimson Countess and basically says, I was hoping that you would come for me because you loved me. And she's like, I never loved you. I hated you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's how we're going to go and deal with it. But then no, he takes it to the next level and completely singes her, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if that isn't some kind of foreshadowing for what Homelander is going to do to Maeve,
right,
I don't know what would be. George, what was your take on that whole scene?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Britt. I think that's definitely going to foreshadow what's going to happen to Maeve. Maybe not in that drastic fashion like that, but like a nuke going off. I don't think you could beat that. That was insane. That's not. It's going to happen to Maeve somehow.
For sure. Maggie says it was the fact she sold him out for nothing in return.
Right.
That hurt.
Yeah, because he said, how much did they pay you? And she said, I hated you. I always hated you. We all hated you. So, which, like you said, is the very same with how everybody feels about Homelander. So the parallel is the same. I do like the fact that Butcher realizes, like, hey, this Soldier Boy, he's our one shot at this, because he has the power to depower Soups and obviously kill him. Some of them he can kill, but I think here's my prediction. I think we will see a depowered Homelander at some point, and he'll have to deal with not having powers. I think that would be a very interesting take on this season, or maybe next season. I'm not sure.
Something that was mentioned earlier by Butcher when talking with Maeve, because she questioned if Ryan, Homelander's son, could potentially take out Homelander, and Butcher says it would be years before Ryan could even attempt that. I wonder too if that could play into any future plans.
Yeah.
And Frank mentioned it in our last episode. It just kind of be poetic with having Ryan take out his dad for every bad thing that he's ever done to anyone, especially his mother.
I agree. Well, I guess my final question for y'all is, so how soon do we see the meeting between Soldier Boy and Homelander? Is it next episode? Is it
next
the
episode?
Finale? Yeah.
I think next episode's going to be fucking crazy.
Next episode, I believe, is the Hero-gasm. And I've read tweets from several of the actors who all say it's their favorite episode.
Right.
So hopefully this is not amping it up for a letdown. I have not been let down by any of the boys' episodes. I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea if we're going to see a showdown between Soldier Boy and Homelander in the next episode. If it's not the next episode, it's going to be the finale. I am just very much looking forward to this Thursday. And I say this Thursday because the previous episode did air Thursday, 7 p.m.
Let's hope, Justin.
Our time.
This one comes out on Thursday.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, everyone.
Not jinx it, knock on wood.
I was so happy this past Thursday when around 7, I noticed the episode was there. I was like, that's awesome. They're back. Amazon has forgiven me. And so I appreciate it. I'm glad that we're getting it at 7 p.m. on Thursdays. That's the best way to go.
So Maggie thinks the meetup will be in the last episode. She says next week's episode is going to be insane. The memes are hilarious. They talk about buckets of certain body liquids.
Yeah, I mean the Hero-gasm is a reference to, it's a very sexual situation from the comics. So I think that we're going to get that probably the beginning of the episode, I would guess, right? That's just going to be how we start off. I mean, I don't
like the giant penis that we saw.
I don't think we're going to get, I think it'll be the shocking start to the episode. Whereas I think that, I don't know how much that's actually going to play into the storyline, but I don't know. You're right. They're all talking about this. So obviously it plays a huge part, or it's very shocking. So something to look forward to. Obviously. I mean, The Boys is awesome anyway, but I think this episode
Very much so.
is gonna take it to another level, if that's even possible. So final thoughts of the episode. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you want to mention?
I think we pretty much touched on everything. George, was there something that you wanted to discuss or have any predictions for next episode, other than the fact that you think the meetup is going to happen next episode?
Yeah. Nothing over this episode. We covered everything. I think next episode, I could see the meetup. I'm thinking like the Game of Thrones type of. It was like always like the second to not second. It was like the third to last episode that was always the craziest. Yeah. So that's the only reason to say. I hope something.
That's a good point.
Something sick happens.
Yeah, I have no expectations. I just literally cannot wait for it. I'm loving this season. It's been such a great season so far.
Yeah, me too. And we'd like to hear your thoughts on what you think about the season 3 of The Boys so far. And if you'd like to let us know on social media, Brittany, how can people find us on social media?
You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Simply search The Watchers in the Basement or use the handle Watchers Basement. You can also help grow our audience. If you have been here long enough, you know that we are on our way, the road to 100. We're trying to get 100 subscribers here on YouTube. Help make that happen. You can do so by using hashtag Watchers Basement when tweeting about us, commenting, what have you. Just be sure to use hashtag Watchers Basement. And for those who are not into video podcasts, that's totally cool. You can listen to our audio podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, thanks to anchor.fm. And please be sure to give us a 5-star rating. It really helps out our podcast channel. Hopefully one day we can make this into a full-time job. But for now, this is what it is.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Brittany. Thank you for that. Also, by the way, you said the road to 100. So not only do we want 100 subscribers, but we're getting close to 100 episodes if we haven't already done that. And we may have already done that because we've done many. That's been crazy. We're on our 3rd year, right? 3rd or 4th year?
We're in our 4th year.
4th year. So yeah, we've either done 100 or we're getting very close to 100. So big things are happening here for the Watchers in the Basement. So anyway,
yeah,
we're gonna be back next week to discuss episode 6 of season 3. We hope that you join us, and we appreciate everybody for watching. So for George, for Brittany, and for myself, we will see you next week. Thank you.